Hello everyone, this is Dr. Dandekar, Professor Surgery from Rural Medical College, Loni. Our today's topic is carcinoma of urinary bladder. Objective of our topic is to discuss carcinoma of bladder under these heading: etiology, etiopathology, tumor staging, grading, clinical feature, investigations, treatment, and afterward we will discuss few points regarding the urinary diversion, which is not mandatory but it will be additional information. The questions which can be asked about this topic are: long question, describe the etiology or the etiopathology, clinical features and management of carcinoma of urinary bladder. The short notes can be diagnosis or investigations for the carcinoma of urinary bladder, treatment of early carcinoma of urinary bladder, treatment of advanced carcinoma of urinary bladder, and again this is not common, nice to know, is a urinary diversion. Actually this is a PG question, will not be asked to the UG, but you should have some idea regarding this urinary diversion. Let us come to our topic. The carcinoma of urinary bladder is fairly common cancer. It is common cancer after the carcinoma of prostate, and you will be seeing this patient very commonly in our surgery OPD. There is one more importance of this cancer because it is one of the designated industrial cancer. So there is a social stigma attached to this kind of cancer. As you are aware that the epithelium of the genitourinary system is transitional. So obviously 90%, 95% of this urinary bladder cancer will be of transitional cell carcinoma type. The remaining 5% may arise from the connective tissue, that may be angioma, myoma, fibroma or sarcoma. Sometimes you can notice the extra-adrenal pheochromocytoma, which is bladder being a pelvic organ fairly gets involved in a secondary encroachment. So the structures which are having a carcinoma within the periphery or vicinity of the cancer, within the vicinity of the bladder, may encroach upon the urinary bladder. So the carcinoma of sigmoid, colon, prostate in the female ovary and uterus are known to encroach and present like carcinoma of urinary bladder, and after investigation you find out that this is the secondary involvement. Histologically, most of 90% of the urinary bladder carcinoma will be transitional cell carcinoma. 5% may be a squamous cell carcinoma, 1 to 2% adenocarcinoma, and rarely you may come across a mixed varieties. Squamous carcinoma are common where the bilharziasis, that is the infestation due to the parasite, they are called as the Schistosomia hematobium, is endemic. And you may have adenocarcinoma arising from the remnants of the urachus or from the areas of glandular metaplasia. Sometimes squamous cell carcinoma may arise in a patient who are having chronic non-treated urinary bladder stones. Stones which are causing ulcers may get converted to the squamous cell carcinoma of the urinary bladder. Now it is interesting to know the etiology. As I said, there is a industrial hazard that is associated with this urinary carcinoma bladder. But the first culprit to cause the urinary bladder cancer is cigarette smoking, almost 40%. So again, cigarette smoking causes almost everything, all type of cancer, and this is also one of the known etiology. So smoking is a leading cause for the urinary bladder cancer. In addition, it is found, but it cannot be claimed that in every patient it will happen, but the patient who received cyclophosphamide, that is a cytoxan, for as a chemotherapy in various cancers, are at higher risk to develop urinary bladder carcinoma. And as I said, this is a designated or a prescribed industrial cancer because there is a certain chemical that is causing the certain chemicals which are described as the urothelial carcinogen are known to cause this urinary bladder carcinoma. And this was noted in the last century. A first series of a bladder cancer was recorded in 1895 by a German surgeon, Ludwig Rehn, who has a pioneer or a groundbreaking research done in the aniline dye workers, and he was the first person to notice the bad effect of aniline compound. So there comes a question, what is this aniline? Actually, previously somebody had asked this as a short note, or during the viva somebody can ask you what is exactly aniline. So aniline is actually a byproduct of the petroleum product. So once the liquid petroleum and the gases are separated, then whatever remains, one of the byproduct is the coal tar, and that coal tar contains a colorless oily liquid that is called as a aniline. Now this aniline is very useful industrial material. So it is used in manufacture of dyes, drugs and plastic. Nowadays it is still used because its use is established. Only thing that once we know about its carcinogenic activity, now the industries has started taking the precaution to avoid the side effect or the carcinogenic effect of this aniline. But remember, aniline products are still in use. That's why there is a still percentage of carcinoma of bladder causing because of this aniline. This aniline is a basic ingredient of the earliest synthesis, and it contains lots of carcinogenic material. Actually, again, this is a compound, this is not a single material, and aniline contains many carcinogens. So I will give you the names. If you can remember, that will increase the bulk of your short note. So aniline contains 2-naphthylamine, 4-amino-biphenyl, benzidine, chlornafazine, 4-chloroorthotoluidine, 4,4-methylene base 2-chloraniline. Then there are methylene dianilines, there are benzidine derived azo-dyes, all are known carcinogens. Then you will say why they are used? Because they are useful. Few things that cannot be explained, just like a tobacco industry. Why it is used? Because it is used, it creates a revenue. So this aniline or the aniline byproducts are used in various industries. So those industries who are using, so I will give you the name. So these industries are using aniline. So the workers who are working in these industries are at risk to develop carcinoma. So what are the industries that use these aniline dyes? One is in the textile industry, dyeing industry, rubber, tire and cable industry, petrol industry, leather working, shoe manufacturing, tanning industries, painting. Even the painters who are doing individual work are also at risk. Then there are some products they are used by the hairdressers, truck drivers. Why truck driver? Because they are transporting and they are constantly in touch with the aniline product. Drill press operator, chemical industry worker, rodent exterminator and sewage workers. Now you will wonder how this rodent exterminator and sewage workers are at risk. Because these aniline byproducts, the waste material is dumped into the sewages, and those people who enter into the sewerage, they come in contact with this. Actually it's a working as a pollutant, and this aniline as a pollutant, these workers are coming in contact with this aniline products and they are at risk to develop a urinary bladder carcinoma. So this is a recognized industrial cancers liable for compensation. So remember, if any of patient suffering from carcinoma bladder, you have to ask and then you can advise that person to go and demand for a compensation, or at least his treatment will be borne, the expenses of the treatment will be borne by that industry. So our first etiology was, as I said, was a smoking first, second was aniline dye, and it is found that there is a genetic origin or there is some genetic event which are connected to the occurrence of the carcinoma of bladder. So the people who show the genetic predisposition, that means there are genetic defect in the either in the N-acetyltransferase or glutathione transferase or cytochrome P450. So if there is a genetic polymorphism for this, then these people are at increased risk for the carcinoma of bladder. Also, there are certain genetic events like activation of oncogenes, then loss of genetic material on the chromosome 9. These two events, in some patients they will cause a low stage or low grade disease, and in some patients they may cause a high grade and high stage disease. Then, as we have already mentioned, areas where there is a bilharziasis or the schistosomia hematobium, these are also at risk, and people who are suffering from the Balkan nephropathy are also at risk to develop a carcinoma of urinary. Let us come to directly first see the tumor staging and grading. Why this is important? Because this will give you idea regarding management or idea regarding the treatment and its outcome. So tumor staging is always important to mark the prognosis. So when the patient comes to you, you can divide it either in the early carcinomas or the advanced carcinoma. So for that, tumor staging and grading are important. Actually, multiple methods are used for the grading. So there are certain grading which are almost running from 1953. So there is one grading that is called as the Jewett and Strong grading. According to this, again this diagram is reference. We will keep on seeing this diagram again and again, but here you can find out these are the layers of the bladder. This is the inner layer and you are going outside. So innermost layer is the mucosa that contains a epithelium as well as lamina propria. After that there is a mucosa. Then there is a layer of a muscle that is again divided into the three parts. The innermost is the inner longitudinal layer, then the middle circular layer and the deep longitudinal layer. The outermost is the subserosa and the perivesical fat. Over the fundus, you will find that it is in the contact with the peritoneum, and where there is no contact with the peritoneum, the outermost covering will be subserosa. So, with this grading, stage A is the submucosal invasion, stage B is the muscular invasion, stage C is the perivesical invasion by the tumor. Again, you can use a Marshall modified grading. This is again a different. Here the stage 0 is confined to the mucosa. Then stage A, that is the superficial tumor invading the lamina propria. So you can see here it is only limited to the lamina propria. Then there is a stage B which is divided into stage B1. Here the tumor is extending into superficial half of the detrusor muscle. And then there is a stage B2 and C. Here the tumor is invading full thickness of the detrusor muscle. You can make out here all the layers of the muscles are involved. Then directly we are talking about the stage D1. Now this is the stage D here. Here what is happening? All layers are involved. The disease has come out of the bladder and has invaded the surrounding. In addition, there are lymph node involvement. So D1 will include lymph node mets below the bifurcation of aorta, and D2 will include lymph node mets above the bifurcation of aorta and distant mets. So actually this kind of, these are the multiple evolution of the grading method. As I said, it started from somewhere in the 1953 and kept on evolving till 1996. But afterward, to avoid this controversy or avoid this regional variation or the continental variation, so the English had their different kind of classification, the Americans had, then Asian countries had some different kind of, to avoid that, then everybody came together and there was a congress that is called as the American Joint Committee on Cancer. So that classification is now universally accepted, so that everybody is doing in the same fashion. So again, let us come back to the same diagram. I will just give you an enlarged view of these layers again. So these are the layers you have already seen. You can go back and refer this. So what we are going to see as per this AJCC classification is a TNM classification. So TNM, the first criteria is tumor criteria or the tumor invasion criteria. The first is the TX, that is cannot be assessed. What do you mean by this TX cannot be assessed? This is something interesting. Suppose a patient comes to you, somebody has taken a biopsy and the biopsy shows the report of a transitional cell carcinoma. That means the disease is established, patient is having transitional cell carcinoma which is proved by a biopsy. But right now there is no disease. If you do the cystoscopy or send the patient for sonography or CT scan or MRI, you don't see any lesion. But that doesn't mean that patient did not have any disease. So this condition is called as a TX. So that somebody had biopsied, the report is available, so that stage becomes TX. Now the next is TIS, that is a carcinoma in situ. What is carcinoma in situ? This is limited to the mucosa and the disease or the tumor has not crossed the basement membrane. So actually this is the best malignancy to have, because it has not crossed the basement membrane. So it has not come in contact with the lymphatics or the blood vessels, so that there is no spread. This carcinoma will be limited, and if you just go for a wide local excision, this will give you the best ever prognosis. Now let us come to the T1 type of tumor, that is the tumor that is invading only lamina propria. Then T2, that is involving the, here again T2, that is if it is a T2A, it will invade only the superficial muscles. Then T2B, that is invading the deep muscle, so the extent is increased. Then T3, here is the T3, it has extended into the perivesical tissues, so all the layers are obviously involved and it is showing the microscopic invasion of the perivesical tissue. Then there is a T3B, that shows the invasion of the perivesical tissue and extravesical mass that can be seen. T4 is the invasion of prostate, uterus or vagina, so this is a extensive. And T4B is invasion of pelvic wall and abdominal wall. Now there is some people will say, you remember the TNM classification or the T staging or the stages, what is TX, what is TS, what is T1, T2, T3. Personally, I feel that you should refer the chart and do the classification or stage as per the chart. But if somebody asks you the question and if you can remember, that is well and good. Now the next criteria is the nodal stage. That depends upon the size of the nodes or the nodal involvement. Same thing, NX, that means somebody had biopsied, now the no nodes are available, but you have a report, so that stage calls as a NX, that is cannot be assessed. N0 means there is only local tumor but no node is involved, so nodes are not involved in the N0. N1 means there is a presence of a single node which is less than 2 cm in the size. N2, the description of N2 is single node involved, the size is more than 2 cm but less than 5 cm. Or otherwise there are multiple nodes but none of them is more than 5 cm. So that constitute N2. N3 is if the node size any one or more, the node size is more than 5 cm, that consists as a N3 area. And the last, that is well known to you, it's a M0 and M1, but you can add MX which cannot be defined. So we usually don't use this MX. So M0 means no distant metastasis and M1 is a distant metastasis. So this is your T and M staging. Now there are some, if you want additional to have a better prognosis, then you can go for the histological readings. So as per the histological readings, WHO has proposed the 3 grades of classification of transitional cell carcinoma. And what are these 3? Grade 1 is when you see the histological criteria, here the malignancy is well differentiated, you can make out the cells, the lamina propria is not involved, the malignancy is of papillary type, the base is narrow, and overall inference of this grade 1 criteria is that this grade is having a good prognosis because the treatment you can offer is it can be cured or it can be removed with the help of a TURT or a TURBT, that is a transurethral resection of tumor or transurethral resection of bladder tumor. So grade 2 is compared to grade 1, the cells are less differentiated. The extent is higher because the lamina propria is invaded but not the detrusor. So the muscles are preserved. If you see the malignancy, the base is wider. In previous it was papillary, here the base is wide. Still grade 2, it is curable by the TURT or the TURBT. There is a third grade. It's a poorly differentiated anaplastic, that means you cannot make out the types of cells. The presentation is nodular than papillary. It's invasive, that means it might have crossed all the layers, and obviously once the muscle layer is crossed, the middle muscular layer is crossed, it is not curable by TURT. But one of the fortunate point is this is radiosensitive, so you can try radiotherapy. So there is a staging as well as grading which is applicable to the carcinoma of bladder, and you can on this criteria at least find out some prognosis of this disease. The next question is how the carcinoma of bladder spreads. Unfortunately, because the bladder is very vascular structure, the bladder is within the vicinity, having a very good venous supply, good arterial supply as well as a lymphatic spread. So all the modalities of the spread are available for this carcinoma. So first, it will grow locally, it will grow inside. If it grows inside, that is a fortunate because there is a lots of space, but if it grows outside, then it will grow and encroach over the surrounding structure and the prognosis will go down. So local enhancement, continuity, also it will encroach the surrounding by the which are in the contiguity. Next, it can spread by the lymphatic route, It can spread by the blood route, that is the hematogenous route, and as you are aware, there is a abundant blood supply. One more entity is available, or one more entity is present in the bladder, is that you can have a presence of kissing tumor. See, this is a reservoir. When the urine is full, the bladder will inflate, and when the urine empties or when the urine is evacuated, the bladder wall will come in close contact with each other. So if there is a malignancy on the fundus will almost come into the contact with the lower portion of the bladder, and it can cause a kissing tumor. Sometimes you will notice that there is an allantoic spread through the remnant of allantois to the peritoneum. So you know about the urachus, by which it is connected to the umbilicus, and that is the embryological origin. So there might be spread through this route to the peritoneum. How does this cancer presents? One of the unfortunate part is that if it is growing inside the bladder, and because there is so much space in the bladder, then the patient may not notice it for the long time, and finally patient may suddenly present with a painless and gross hematuria. So it is the commonest and earliest feature. Bleeding, amount of bleeding could be mild or moderate. Sometimes it's a short, sometimes it is prolonged. But the important point is that patient will present with a painless hematuria. So any elderly patient coming with a hematuria, at least you must have a suspicious in mind about the carcinoma of bladder. Sometimes it may happen that if the malignancy is present in the base, present at the neck of the bladder, the base is posteriorly and the neck is the narrow portion, and the apex is the narrow portion which is toward the internal orifice. So if the malignancy is present and it is pedunculated, in that case it may cause a retention, and this patient may present with a recurrent UTI and cystitis. This happens because there is a space occupying lesion. There are these are the pedunculated or the space occupying lesion, which gives a platform for the lodgement of bacteria, and it may cause recurrent UTI or cystitis. If the patient presents with a pain, actually that indicates that it has gone outside the bladder and now it has involved somewhere, it is encroached upon the nerve. So that is a ominous sign. How do you investigate, or what is the protocol for the investigation of the carcinoma of urinary bladder? Because the patient's first complaint will be painless hematuria. So you have a patient coming with a painless hematuria, you can first go for a urine examination. So routine and micro, what you will notice that there will be debris and you will notice plenty of RBCs. But if you go into the detail and if you collect the samples, you can go for a pap smear, that is a Papanaculose staining. If you want a better result, then you can have a 24 hours urinary sediment. How it is done? Ask the patient to collect the urine for 24 hours. Then when you collect this 24 hours urine, you can centrifuge it and there will be a precipitation of a solid material at the bottom. Now you can take a section from this and you can find the malignant cell in this deposit. So that is called as a 24 hours urinary sediment histology examination. Next is the ultrasonography, that gives you the most of the diagnosis. Or you can go for a CT or you can go for MRI also. But commonly you diagnose this with the ultrasonography. If at all, this is not a suggested investigation, but sometimes it may happen that you are doing a intravenous urography for something else, and what you find is that there is a filling defect in the bladder. So if the rounded border or the rounded periphery of the bladder, if it is distorted, that can be interpreted as a filling defect. In that case, you may have a suspicion of a carcinoma bladder. And the best investigation, or rather I will say a mandatory investigation, whenever there is a space occupying lesion arising from any bladder wall, in that case cystoscopy is mandatory, so that you can observe it physically and immediately you can confirm it with a biopsy. Why cystoscopy is important? Because every time if there is a space occupying lesion, it cannot be malignancy all the time. So observing it, sometimes it may happen that this is just a clot, or these are just debris, or this is an unnoticed stone, or sometimes parasites which are causing a sort of a collection, that is the Haematobia schistosomia hematobium. So it is very essential to go with a cystoscopy and take a biopsy of that suspected lesion. Angiography, again, sometimes you may find a enhanced vasculature, but again this is not a diagnostic investigation. What is diagnosis? Urine, pap smear, 24 hours urinary sediment, USG, and cystoscopy with a biopsy. So biopsy is very important. So let us come to the last part. So I will just stick to the outline of the treatment. The treatment of bladder is a matter of a super specialty. The patient will be combinedly treated by an oncosurgeon and an oncotherapist, because it will be divided either into the early malignancy or the late or advanced malignancy, and it is usually treated by either oncosurgeon or the urologist. So let us go step by step. Just let us have an outline, and you can go into the details of the treatment in the onco books. If it is a low grade tumor, so you have these two criteria: either you go by the TNM criteria and add with the gradation criteria. If these are low grade tumors, how do you decide the low grade tumors? It's actually very simple. See the muscular invasion. When you take the biopsy, the histologist will give you idea how much is the invasion. So now an MRI or the CT scan will give you the idea. If the muscle invasion is only superficial or up to the middle there, in that case you can go for, that is called as a low grade tumor, and in that case you can go for a TURT or a TURBT, that is a transurethral resection of tumor, or otherwise it is also called as a transurethral resection of bladder tumor. Now once you have done perform the TURBT, I will show you how the assemblies are there and what is the principle. I have added one short video about that, so it will be easier for you to understand what is a TURT or a TURBT. But once you carry out that resection, that TURT must be followed by chemotherapy. So it will be a local chemotherapy. Once you remove that, fill up the bladder with any of these agents. You can use thiotepa, ipodil, mitomycin, epirubicin, or a doxorubicin. So once you do it, fill it, keep it for some time, prescribed time, and that will give a good effect to the patient. And there is one more interesting part, that is the immunotherapy with the help of intravesical BCG. So it is not the same BCG that is given subcutaneously as a vaccine for tuberculosis. This is a different dose, and that is used for the intravesical immunotherapy. So what is done is that you inject the solution of a BCG vaccine after the TURBT into the bladder. You keep on changing the position so that solution will come in contact with all bladder. So for some time the patient will be sleeping supine, then for prone, then left lateral and right lateral. So this is maintained for almost 3 to 4 hours, so that everything will come into contact. And there is a very interesting phenomenon, because there is ulcer and these are the malignant cells. The body will develop a response. So there will be subclinical infection caused because of the introduction of this BCG vaccine. So there will be a immune response. There will be inflammatory response induced by this BCG, attenuated BCG bacteria. Against that, body will develop antibodies, or rather body will develop lymphocytes. And now these lymphocytes, while they are scavenging the bacteria, at the same time they, while these lymphocytes are scavenging the lesions which are caused because of the subclinical infection because of this vaccine, at the same time the same lymphocyte will go on eating the malignant cells, thereby getting a immunotherapy. So I have given you just a broad outline. The details you can read under the heading of immunotherapy or intravesical BCG treatment for a carcinoma of urinary bladder. One more modality you can use is that you can go for an internal or an interstitial irradiation. So it will be sort of a brachytherapy by directly bombarding only the local disease, or in India we still use the external beam radiotherapy for the low grade tumors, because some patients which are very elderly, they cannot be operated and they are not willing for the operation. But low grade tumor and TURBT, they say hardly you need to, because TURBT can be easily done and it is a simple operative. So this was again partial cystectomy. You can do it by doing a wide local excision. So whatever the remaining bladder, that can take care of a bladder function, or a radical cystectomy with a diversion. Then you can treat the patient with a chemotherapy or the external beam radiotherapy. Now I will show you a video how a biopsy is taken, and this is the same technique by which you can go for a TURBT. Biopsy you do it once, and the same technique you apply and you can go for a TURBT. So watch this very small video.
When a tumor is discovered on the interior wall of the bladder, it is possible to remove it with the assistance of a resectoscope, which allows access to the bladder without invasive surgery. Once inside the bladder, specialized instruments are used to remove the tumor and a safe margin of tissue from the surrounding area. Other instruments are used to clear away the excised tissue. Supplemental therapies may be used to reduce the likelihood that the cancer will survive or reappear.
So it's a simple technique, and this is the assembly of a cystoscope. So what is here you can observe is at the end of this cystoscope there is a camera and there is a loop. Can you see this loop? And now this loop take the slice of the bladder wall, and the same loop you go on using for a TUR. First you use it for the biopsy, taking just a single bite, and once you establish that it is a resectable, in that case you can go with a different loops. I will show you different loops. So these are the different kind of loops you can use for the TURBT. This is a magnified view. So this is going through the wall, and this is literally scraping the tumor from the wall. So this is electrically operated, and this cut through very smoothly, and you can decide. And the same thing, there are two types of current passed. One is a cutting current by which you take a slice, and another is a coagulating current by which whatever bleeding happens, that is taken care by the same loop. Now you observe how the TURBT is done. Can you see here? Now this is the loop is applied, and the loop will take out this tumor. So this is a sort of a pedunculated tumor. So this will be taken out in first bite, and then you will go on clearing till, see there are 1, 2, 3 layers. So you will go on clearing this much area up to the middle layer, right? So that is how the TURBT is performed. Again, you can go through this. This is multiple assemblies. This is the cystoscope and all the instruments which are used in the urology. You can go back, pause this slide, and you can see this and read all the instruments. Now let us come to the part of something that is called as the diversion. Now why am I explaining this? That you will be wondering what will happen if the bladder is removed. Partial cystectomy is okay. Partial cystectomy is still the half of the bladder is remained and that is sutured. But what if the patient undergoes a total cystectomy, complete removal of the bladder? If it is done, then where the urine will go? You cannot just leave the urine to drip into the peritoneum. The patient will go into the infection. So there are multiple methods. One is that creating a new bladder. Creating a new bladder is taking, for example, there is called as a Indiana pouch. That means you take this much portion of this cecum, you isolate it, and then you implant the ureters into that. Another thing is that if you do a partial cystectomy, in that case the partial cystectomy is covered with the intestine. So I will just explain you, and there is one more method of a diversion that is called as a ileal conduit. Conduit means what? Conduit is a reservoir. So you can create a neobladder or a reservoir for implanting the ureters with the help of a ileum. So I will just give you idea. So this is ileocecal junction, and this green is the marked portion of ileum which will be used as a neobladder or the reservoir. So what is done? So this much portion is isolated along with the mesenteric supply. So you will cut this much portion from the continuity. So now these two ends you will connect together by resection anastomosis. So the continuity of the GIT is maintained. And now you have this portion which is supplied with the mesenteric artery with its supply. One end here is closed, and this end is brought out of this abdomen just near or lateral to the umbilicus. And the ureters which are now hanging after the removal of the bladder are implanted into this ileum. So this arrangement is called as a ileal conduit. So ileal conduit is very routinely used. But if you have expertise available, then people may come with a continent bladder. So this is not topic of our discussion. This is just to give you idea what is a urinary diversion. So this is all regarding. I have given you very brief outline. The treatment part you will have to prepare yourself step by step, because what I have said is the low grade tumor and advanced tumor. One is TURBT, another is the cystectomy. Then there is a partial cystectomy as well as the total cystectomy. There are many issues related to the feasibility of the operation, whether the patient, which patient should be operated, which patient should not be operated. But for undergraduate, this much details are not required. So I have restricted my topic to only the basic essentials. Thank you, and let us end the topic. Thank you.